Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plans, and today we are heading down south, way down south, for a member-recommended hometown flyover. We are in the capital of Mississippi, the city, maybe we should even call it a town because it's so small, of Jackson. And I apologize to whoever requested that because I cannot find your original message, so I don't know who you are, and I don't have a record of the landmarks you suggested that we check out, but this place is not real big, so I think we're going to hit most of them. I know you mentioned something about the hospital, so we'll check those out for sure, along with everything else out here. And I also apologize to everyone else because this was supposed to be a San Diego tour, but there was a bunch of add-ons for that area out there, which just looked amazing. The whole area looked so good before the add-ons. I put them on there, took another test flight, and my sim kept crashing to desktop, so I pulled them all back out, and it was still doing it. So yet another location now has been rendered unflyable in 2020, which is yet another reason why I'm looking forward to going to 2024, just purging all that stuff out of there. I can't even imagine the crap I've accumulated over all these years. So we'll do a little spring, or I guess I should say fall cleaning here pretty soon. The only add-on we've got for this flight is this livery, which I thought looked pretty cool. And I took the 47J because it's so slow and this area is so small. This will still be short enough, I think, to qualify as a lunch break flight. But let's go ahead and get in and fire up and get moving right along. Okay, so full mix, and then battery, generator, fuel on, starter, mags on, and we'll give it a little throttle. All right, while that's running up, we'll take a quick peek at the Google map. Let's zoom out a little bit first here so you can see exactly where we are. So there's Mississippi, called Mississippi because look what runs down along the western border of it. That is the Mississippi River, which doesn't make up the whole border with Louisiana and Arkansas. There's a little cut over here, and then this thing here is the Pearl River that makes up this little portion. That's about 50, 60 miles right there, and that is what runs right by Jackson, so we'll check that out. And the person that recommended this flight said we should leave from Hawkins Field, which is right here, but it's like right downtown. So I wanted a little bit more time to check out some of the other stuff, and we've got a big reservoir up here with another nice little dam, so we'll check that out too. So this is the area we're going to depart from, Bruce Campbell Field, come right down here, cruise along the spillway, called Spillway Road, and then here's the Pearl, which looks awesome also. We'll come down here, cruise around the north side. There's a big stadium they got over here. Around this, there's a zoo over there, but you can't see anything. Even on the satellite map, it doesn't look like much. It's very small. We'll come around the western side of town and meet up with Interstate 20, and then just follow this over to Jackson International, which is our arrival airport right here. So it's going to be a pretty quick flight, but again, this thing is pretty slow, and it's going to just look beautiful. This thing is just about the right pace for the distance that we've got here. Okay, bring the throttle up some more, and hopefully this thing doesn't just shake itself to pieces. There we go. And just to make it a little bit easier for me, I'm going to go ahead and take this map and turn it on, center it, zoom in a little bit. Maybe I'll have to look at little NavMap a little bit less, although you could easily VFR fly this thing as you're about to see. And I don't think we have taken this helicopter up since that Arc of Kentucky flight, which means I don't think I've ever flown it without the assist on, so this will be interesting. We'll see how she feels. One of the great things about this one is that there's no vertical speed indicator, and our altitude indicator is way down there on the console, so you don't feel the temptation to look at your gauges all the time. And we're up. Which is a good thing for me because I'm always tempted to be staring at my gauges, and in helicopters you're supposed to really just try to fly it by feel. And of course the field of view in this thing is outrageously good. So this is Bruce Campbell Field, originally called Augustine Auxiliary Airport, and when they built it in 1941, they were using it to train pilots along with Hawkins Field, that other place that was just west of downtown. And in 1941, they just had one paved runway out here, and then a gigantic 4,000 by 4,000 foot grass field that they used for omnidirectional landing, so you could come in whichever way the wind wanted you to come in. And now this is mostly a GA airport. Alright, trim her forward a little bit, and just get moving. Look how good the grass looks. There is no map enhancement included in this one. We didn't need it, so everything you're going to see out here is the default stuff, and it looks good. Off in the distance to the right there, you can see the top of a water tower. They got a lot of those out here, but being the sim, all of them are filled in underneath, unfortunately, because they got plenty of them out here. All these really flat areas in the south always have a lot of water towers. And I have no idea what that thing is there on the left. That might be a VOR station that's just elevated to get above the trees. I don't know what that is. We'll take a look at that on the satellite map too. That's not a fuel tank, because look at how jagged it is. We'll check that out later. And there's the reservoir, which looks amazing. Whoa, watch out there, birds. And that thing's called Ross Barnett Reservoir. And they clogged up the Pearl River with that thing in 1960 to provide fresh drinking water for Jackson And they were also apparently having quite a bit of flooding downriver from where they built that. So the advocates of constructing that thing said, hey, if you do that, not only will we finally get some fresh drinking water, but we'll be able to build up some residential stuff south of the dam, which, as you're going to see, they did. They still left a pretty good area open, and you can tell it looks pretty low, so I bet it's awfully swampy. Look how nice that looks. Boy, it's a good thing they built that breakwater. Can't even imagine the surf that comes rushing into that thing here in a reservoir. And you can see they've got 4 lanes of traffic that run along that. I think it's called Spillway Drive or Spillway Road. And considering how long and straight that is, I would not be the least bit surprised if people are doing a little drag racing out here. At least I hope they are. Look at that. I wonder how long that is. We'll have to measure that at the end. We'll just get a tiny, tiny bit of popping with some of this stuff, but other than that, it just looks almost flawless. It's really good. But old Mr. Barnett, the guy that they named this place after, was the governor of Mississippi from 1960 to 64. And it sounds like he was a pretty big fan of segregation, so there have been lots of recent attempts to get the name of this thing changed, apparently unsuccessful so far. But that's kind of the theme of the South up until the Civil Rights Movement, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later. And right up here where the actual spillway is, on the sides of it, you're going to see a very interesting feature, which I did not see on the little NavMap map, but I did see it on the Google map. It looks like they put a bunch of either huge boulders or built some big concrete cubes to put along the side of that. You'll see them here in the sim too. And I'm going to guess they did that to prevent erosion, because you're going to be able to tell that it's already widened up a little bit on the other side of that thing. And this is a really windy river. You're going to be able to see some depressions in the trees of areas where it used to meander, which is pretty neat. Looks a lot like the Mississippi. Very bendy. You see these things up here? Look at that. That just looks so good. Look at this. They got a nice little bridge over here. I'm thinking that's a bridge, not a map scene. Yeah, it's got to be. You can see where it would connect up over there on the other side. And then here's the Pearl River. Despite how diminutive this little guy appears, it is 444 miles long. I showed you where it ended down there at the Gulf. But it starts about 50 miles northeast of here by a town called Philadelphia. No, not that Philadelphia. This one's much smaller. Look at those things down there. And it makes up that border with Louisiana. So one thing I am most certainly looking forward to in 2024, this is something I could be excited about. See these little lines down here by the edges? Now it just kind of disappeared. But almost all of the rivers in the sim have that, and it kind of makes them look a little bit jagged. If there weren't trees here next to it, you could probably see it, where there'd be like some very sharp angles, which is unnatural, obviously. So far, every river I've seen in the flight footage of 2024 looks way better. They don't have that. The coloration looks a lot better, so I think they're going to fix that stuff up, which is great. So I'll share a little bit. Look at this here. You can see where the river used to go. See that? Where the trees are kind of growing a little bit lower? And when we look on the satellite map, you'll see that stuff is all over the place out here. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Jackson before we arrive here in just a few minutes. It is the largest city in the entire state with a population of around 600,000, which is just a little bit less than was out in the Gold Coast that we saw on our last flight in Australia. But I think you're going to agree with me once you see downtown that this does not look nearly the size of Gold Coast. I'm surprised there's 600,000, but this area has been shrinking fairly rapidly. They lost 11% of their population just from 2010 to 2020. I like the little formations in the sand there along the banks. Look, you can see some trees that have fallen over down there. Really cool. And this area right up here, we're intentionally flying over it because this must be the wealthier part of town. They're going to have a couple really big houses up there. It's called the estates of whatever this neighborhood is, which is what you always call the area of your neighborhood with the big houses. And then there's Jackson International, our arrival destination. So we'll come up here, cruise around the city, catch up with Interstate 20, just come right over here, and then come in on this runway and then set this thing down somewhere by the terminal over there. And just to give you a sense of what you'd find if you're looking for anything else that resembled a city in Mississippi, you probably wouldn't find anything. There is not another place in this whole state with more than 100,000 people, which is pretty thinly populated. But Jackson here was founded in 1821 and named after then General Andrew Jackson, namesake of my hometown, Jacksonville, Florida. And just about the only thing out here leading up to its establishment as the capital was a little trading post, and back then everyone knew it as LaFleur's Bluff. Look at that thing. See that? I wonder what that is. Maybe somebody's little fishing shack. You know they got a rope swing on that thing. And the only reason they set the Capitol up out here was because the original location of the legislature was down along the Mississippi at a town called Natchez. So they wanted something just a little bit more central, moving it out here. So these are where the big houses are. This one looks like it's not quite done yet. This one's really big, that one's really big, and they got another really big one right over here in the more treed-in area. Look how muddy that is. Can you imagine the mosquitoes they have on here? Probably looks like that over there too. That looks kind of interesting and not quite right. Maybe there's some really big cypress knees over there. Look at the size of this house here. They got the land. Move them out here. Just need to find a reason to come out to Jackson. Look at that place. That's nice. Yeah, this one's not done yet, I don't think, unless they just want a dirt yard. Of course, they got the guest house and the mother-in-law house. During the Civil War, little old Jackson was a major target for the Union, who recognized that this was a major manufacturing and railroad hub for the South. So the North really wanted it, and old Bill Sherman finally got it after a week of shelling in 1863. And when they were done with that, they burned the entire place to the ground. And there's that other big house right down there with a circular driveway. The destruction was so complete, they started calling this place Chimneyville, because that's all that was left standing. They did leave the old Capitol building and the governor's mansion, which Sherman was using as his headquarters. And they left a portion of what's now called Jackson State's campus, because I think they were using it as a field hospital. Everything else, nothing but chimneys. Right up here is a school for the deaf and blind. Other than that it's a school for the deaf and blind, I couldn't get much info on it. I found their website, but it didn't talk about the history of it, so I don't know how old it is. And then this thing right here, that white thing, is an agriculture and forestry museum. And they got a baseball park over here, which I think is probably part of this place. And anyone who's familiar with the history of the Deep South in the U.S. knows that things did not go well for blacks down here after the Civil War. Even as the rest of the country decided to start behaving as decent human beings, old Jackson here wasn't down with all that. And they were not alone in those sentiments. Most of the South was like that for quite a while. But according to what I was reading, not so much of a problem these days. And as someone who's lived in the South for the last 30 years, just to dispel any myths and stereotypes about it, if you've never been down here or if you're not from the U.S., no, most people are not flaming racist in the South. I've been down here for quite a while, and I lived in Central Florida for a while. If there were going to be a bunch of racists, that's where they'd be. I mean, there's always pockets of idiots everywhere. I encountered a few of them, but when I lived up north for 8 years, I didn't think it was any worse down here than up there. And it wasn't very bad up there either. And if you'd like to add any inflammatory commentary along that regard, please don't. I'll be the only one that sees it. Okay, one thing that the person who suggested this flight did say is check out all the hospitals. So this is a huge hospital here. That's a VA center there. Another big hospital here. This is affiliated with the University of Mississippi, although this is not the University of Mississippi. And then that's a Baptist facility over there. And this stadium is part of Jackson State, which their campus is actually over here. We'll check that out. And then this thing is called a medical mall. And I don't know what that is. It looks like a regular mall. I thought that's what it is the first time I flew over, but it's called a medical mall. I'm going to come up just a little bit here. So here it is, the biggest city in the state and the capital. Look how thinly populated this is. This does not appear to be nearly the population of the Gold Coast. But I like this. And one of our members suggested that at some point we should do a tour of all the state capitals, which I think would be pretty neat. I flew over the Dakotas one time, checked out their capitals. They make this place look like a bustling metropolis. So Jackson State University, which we'll see in a minute, was originally established as Natchez Seminary in 1877. And today it's one of the largest historically black schools in America, with an average enrollment of around 6,500 students. And this is another one here called Belhaven University. I'm pretty sure that's where their campus is. Not a real big place either. But Jackson State is the fourth largest in the state in terms of attendees. Look at this train yard here. So there's the medical mall, which might have originally been a good old-fashioned shopping mall. So if you need a procedure of some kind and you're in Mississippi, this is the place to be. Look at this. Look how much green space they have by downtown here. Love it. I bet the traffic's not too bad. And they've got some kind of old mill or construction facility right here, right by downtown, which looks beautiful, nice and rusty on top. Got a nice big train yard here. And then here's the campus of Jackson State, right over here. We're going to cut right between this and downtown. Okay, so here's the new Capitol building. That was built in 1903, so it's not all that new. Just south of this big park here. And then this building is their state Supreme Court building. And that little white spot right there is the governor's mansion where Sherman set up his headquarters. There's another water tower that's filled in underneath. And let's see what else we can see out here. This is their convention center. They gotta have one of those. And then this other building here, when we fly by it, you'll see it looks like it's got a big chomp taken out of it, is the city courthouse, I believe. And the old Capitol building, which was also left standing after the bombardment, is this little thing right here with a dome on top of it. And there's Jacksonville State's campus. The zoo is probably right about over here. It doesn't look like much, even from the satellite maps. It's pretty small. But look how great this looks. And once again, I know I sound like a broken record. I don't think I've ever landed anywhere in Mississippi, so I would not have flown out here to check this out if it wasn't for that recommendation. And it looks gorgeous. Really precise. Everything looks great. The performance is great for a photogrammetry city. It's really good. And that big open area over there is the site of the Mississippi State Fairgrounds. And they've been dishing out fun over there since 1858. And this thing here is a coliseum known as the Jackson Volcano. Look at that. They got like a dirt bike ramp or something there. Yeah, you gotta have one of those at the State Fair. There's a big farmer's market. Also looks beautiful. And there's the little old Capitol. Old Capitol. And this thing over here is called Nucor Steel. I flew out over there before on one of my earlier flights. It looks great. Also very filthy and beautiful. And we're going to have one more big baseball facility right over here. This is going to be in this area. It's called Trustmark Park. And they built that in 2005. And they got a minor league team that plays in there. It's the Mississippi Braves, who is a minor league affiliate of the Atlanta Braves. And back there in the volcano, they had a minor league hockey team playing for a while, the Bandits. They were there for 4 years, which ended in 2003. I guess it took them that long to figure out people from the South don't know what hockey is. And I can attest that that's mostly true. If you're from the South, probably don't watch a lot of hockey. Some transplants do. Looks like we got a junkyard of some kind down there. Look at how good that looks. Oh, love it. So we had our first little incident of an interpersonal flare-up over that Leeds flight. And I'm not a big fan of censorship, but I also don't want this channel to be... I want it to be the one reprieve on the internet where you don't see people having at it in the comment section. So two guys from the UK were having a little dispute over politics, and if you change the name of the parties, you would have thought they were talking about something in the US here. So I reluctantly pulled the comments down because for as long as I can handle moderating it, I just don't want that kind of stuff on our channel. The one place you can go to not deal with that, but I also don't like censoring anything. So I'm going to give you an option to be as much of a name caller as you want under one condition. The next time I sense that someone's honor has been slighted on our channel, we're going to handle it like they would down here in the Old South with a duel. So if you're going to go at it, I will give you 24 hours to respond to my challenge for it to be resolved with a duel. And if you agree to it, I will set up an aviation landing challenge at the field of my choice, in the plane of my choice, and in the weather conditions of my choice. And if you agree to it and participate, I will leave your comments up there. I will post that it was resolved with a duel, post the winner of the duel, and you can just go to town. As long as it's not just horribly offensive, we'll leave it up there. So just make sure you can put your aviation skills where your mouth is if you're going to start name calling. And I'm hoping that no one's going to refrain from now because I'd really like to see that. Look at the tops of all these buildings. Just looks beautiful. So we'll see one more junkyard up here on the right, and then a place called Hines Community College, which is an interesting enough structure. You'll definitely be able to tell that it's something kind of unique, so I had to look up what that was. And it looks like they have a school complex of some kind up here, too. And despite being such a tiny little city, they've belted out a few big names from this area. The Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, if you're into professional wrestling, is from Jackson, Mississippi. I'm not really into professional wrestling, but I watched it a little bit back in the 80s, and I remember that guy. And Leanne Rimes is also from out here, country music star. And a girl named Audrey Faith Perry was born in 1967 up in Ridgeland, which is an area right by the airport we left from. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, you might recognize her by her current stage name. She goes by Faith Hill. Or maybe Faith McGraw if you prefer. So there's that school complex there to the right. That's probably the old elementary school, middle school, high school combo. I think this town out here is called Pearl. And some quick announcements before I tell you about the airport we're coming into. Voting is now open for our quarterly flight plan competition. If you head to our YouTube channel, click on the community tab, you will see the poll up there along with the links to the 4 videos that I've selected for this quarter. Go ahead and vote on those. The winner will get a $50 gift card to the sim vendor of their choice, assuming the vendor offers gift cards, and most of them do. Right now, K2's winning, which was a cool flight, but if you don't like that, get in there and vote. There's that junkyard over there to the right. And if you'd like to throw your hat in the ring for the quarterly flight plan competition, the link to our Discord server will also be in there. This one was mentioned on YouTube, but as happened last time, I often lose track of the comments in YouTube. So to make it a little bit easier for me, if you don't mind and you're not afraid of getting into Discord, which you shouldn't be, there's a community college right there, that triangular thing. We have a section called Suggest a Flight in the Discord channel, so go ahead and check that out, the Discord server. I'll link that as well. Not only can you participate in that, but it's really a cool place to hang out. And that big thing on the right is a furniture store. Another really big place. And now we're coming into Jackson International Airport, the main commercial strip out here. Strips. They opened this up in 1963, and in 2011 it was ranked as the number 11 airport in the world. So in 2011 it got number 11, which is an astounding feat for any U.S. airport. We've never made it to the top 10, so this is the highest any place ever got. And if you're cruising out here in real life, you can check out the Mississippi Musicians Hall of Fame Museum, which is inside the terminal somewhere, and probably not very hard to find because I think they only have 7 gates. And then over there on the northern end of it, which doesn't look like much here in the default airport, they got an Air National Guard facility out there with the 172nd Airlift Wing that has a bunch of C-17s that are used to evacuate wounded U.S. personnel from all over the world. And just for fun, I checked out the range on those things. Of course, they can refuel in the air, but their range is not that big for such a huge plane, only 2,400 miles. I think a 787 is approaching 9,000 miles. And so, of course, once I saw that, I had to break out my little ruler, measure how far 9,000 miles is from here. You could go to just about anywhere in the world. Australia, South America, India, without refueling. Uh-oh, we got some birds. So this first taxiway, I would pull over at that, but there's a refueling station down there, and it's causing some stuttering, so we'll go to that second one and set her down. I think this is going to be short enough for a lunch break. If not, we'll just call it that. There are 2 payware add-ons available for this airport if you're from around the area or just like it so much that you want to check it out again. But I don't know how much more I'd be flying out here, though it did look beautiful, so I did not pick those up. And if you want to see who else is from Jackson, there was a bunch of professional athletes. I don't follow professional sports too much. I'm not a big sports guy, but if you do, you might recognize some of those names. And there was also a bit of fake news, so I'll give you a warning about that. They said that Oprah is from Jackson. She's not. She's from Mississippi, somewhere else. Elvis, who's also not from Jackson. These were all on the people from Jackson sites that I found, or at least one of them, the first one that came up. Elvis is from Tupelo. And they said Jim Henson was from out here. He is from Mississippi, but not from Jackson. And Jimmy Buffett, he's from Pascagoula down by the coast. So I think maybe they're trying to pad their numbers just a little bit. Yeah, you really can't see too much. If you look on the satellite map, you can see all the C-17s parked out at the National Guard, Air National Guard area over there. But 7 gates, not real big, which also probably means really quick TSA checkpoints. So I think I'm going to shoot for that light-colored cement area over there. I haven't come down here before because last time I parked at the fuel area and that was no good. Where we're going to go next, I really don't know. We do have a whole bunch of... Man, after that Leeds flight, which has like 7,000 views, I don't know why that was such a hit. I'm glad it was. But we had a lot of guys from the UK that were suggesting I check some areas out. One of them was like, I don't know if you'll be able to find anything to talk about. And I was like, please. You got to be kidding me. The UK has history under every single rock. There's always stuff to talk about over there. So maybe we'll check out another one of those. And we really need to get back down to South America. We haven't been out there a while. I was trying to find some old archaeological sites. They got some really big ones by Cusco, which is a cool city, but very defaultish looking. And the archaeological site didn't look all that good, so we won't do that. I might try to find some big mounds, maybe here in the U.S. I don't think they have a lot of mounds in Europe. But I'd like to squeeze a few more lunch breaks in just because I can set them up pretty quick. We're just burning time till 2024 now. And we'll check them out. So hang out for just 1 minute. We will look at a little NavMap on the satellite image again. I'll show you a couple things that are a little bit easier to see in that versus from the air. And then we'll be done with Jackson. And we may start a 50-state tour of the capitals for the ones that we haven't checked out already. We've seen quite a few of them, but almost all of them are photogrammetry. And it would definitely be interesting to make a lineup like that. I don't know if we do them all at once because I just don't want to stay in one part of the world for too long. Let's see if I can get right on those little cross marks right there. Can I do it? Oh, we're getting a little stuttering again. Ease her down. I'm not going to hit it. Oh, okay. Oh, that was beautiful. Well, it's certainly not because I'm a bad helicopter pilot. I'll just blame that on the fact that I haven't flown this thing with the assist off yet. Yeah, that was the problem. Okay, let's shut her down real quick. We'll just shut the fuel off here. And we'll throttle down. Kick the mags off. And let's look at a little NavMap real quick. I really like this helicopter because I like big fields of view. It's just that it's so slow. Okay, let's clear that out. And that there. Okay. So if you load this up just like we did, again, this flight plan will be included in the video description. As always, it'll start you right from where we left in the northern end of the airport, which is great because you don't have to taxi all the way down if you're trying to take off this way, and I don't know why you would, because then you'd have to fly back around to see the reservoir. There it is, Spillway Road. And check this out. Look how turbulent that is. And again, in the Google map, I think they had even more stuff built. This is where all that stuff was built up in the sim, and you can see why they did that, because all that water is just churning up the sides of this thing. And if they let it go, they'd eat up their parking lot. They'd have an island there. Let's see if that was... Yeah, that was a bridge over there. Look at that. North Shore Parkway. What a great looking area. And there's the old Pearl. Now check this out. Look at all these areas where this thing used to meander. And I don't know how old... Obviously, this stuff's pretty new. This is where they were building up the big houses, but I can see why that would have been a bit of a flooding problem, because that looks like it's pretty low-lying land there. Let's check these houses out real quick. Oh, they finished that one. Look. It's done now. That one might even be bigger than this one here. Come on, folks, come on out here. This is the good stuff. Boy, I bet you could build a big house for cheap in Jackson. And there's that other big one with the circular driveway. That one's not as big as these. Although all those are pretty good size there. I put a few other bookmarks out here. This is what I think. I didn't research it because we didn't fly over there to check it out. But just judging by those fields, I'd say that's probably a private school. You can tell whenever you see tennis courts like that and a high school football field like that, yeah, that's not a public school. Look at that. Looks good. And then here was the school for the deaf over here, and there's the Agriculture and Forestry Museum. I can't imagine how interesting that would be, but you never know. They got a pretty nice little field there too, don't they? Which also must be fairly new, because as we zoom out, that's not complete either. Big things happening out here in Jackson. All right, here's all these hospitals. Look at this. So here's St. Dominic, the VA place, the UM place. There's the big stadium. And then here's the other big one right here. This is the Baptist facility here. And let's see if that was the university campus. No, here's the university down here. So this is Belhaven. This must all be stuff that's also being used by Jackson State, because these guys have their fields down here, and that's a pretty small place. There's the medical mall, and then here is the zoo. As you can see, not much to see at all. So not worth checking that out, probably. And then here's where Jackson State University is, which looked great. Really good. And then as we get to downtown, here is the new Capitol, new as of 1903. And then there's the Supreme Court building, which I didn't bookmark, but it's right in front of the Capitol. Here's the old Capitol. You'll be able to spot that because it has that little dome on the top of it. And here's the governor's mansion, where Bill Sherman was camping out, put his headquarters in there. Here's the convention center. They got the Museum of Art, which is hard to pick out. And there's the courthouse. You'll see that because it has that circle in the middle of it. And then here's the fairground. Let's see if they have that. Yeah, they do have that ramp there. Look at that. There's the volcano, Mississippi Coliseum. And this must be really new because that wasn't in the sim either, and it looks pretty new. And then once we came over here, we saw Trustmark Park, which looked great. And then we had just the junkyard and the community college over here. There's the community college. Now let's see what kind of schools we got here. So elementary school, junior high. So they must not have a high school here. Oh, and they got another one over here. 2 elementary schools? That close to each other? That's the upper and that's the lower. So this must be like grades 1 through 3 and then maybe 3 through 6 over here. There's got to be a high school. Oh, there we go. There's the high school. You know, I bet that looks pretty new too. I bet this used to be elementary, middle, and high school. They probably just grew enough that they had to build their own high school because that looks pretty new. Boy, look at that field. We don't have any fields like that around Jacksonville. Very nice. And then we came on in to the airport. And if you could see it, you would see this is where the National Guard stuff is. If I could click this off, which I can't because we're sitting there, you'd see the C-17 sitting out there. So that's Jackson. Thank you so much for the recommendation. Again, never would have flown out here. Looked really, really great. What a little gem. So cool. Learned all kinds of things. As always, appreciate the recommendation. This can be entered in the quarterly flight plan competition. I just need to know who you are. Again, I can't find the original comment, so let me know. Ideally, hop on Discord and let me know who you are, because I'd love to talk with you. Very cool place. Where we go next, I don't know. I'm going to still look for some archaeological sites. I've got an archaeological itch that I need to scratch, so we'll see what we can churn up. But this was an absolute blast as always. And boy, I got to tell you, I cannot wait to see y'all again in the skies later. Oh, and by the way, please insult somebody so we can have the air duel. Really want to do that. Just don't be so bad that I have to completely delete it. Later.